Hello, everyone, and welcome to the 2016 Bank of America 500 at Charlotte Motor Speedway race review, where I recap what went on before the race, during the race, and after the race, looking ahead to the upcoming race. So, overall thoughts on this race? Not the race I expected. I guess you could say I already knew that the race was going to be different. Because the race got postponed from Saturday night to Sunday afternoon due to Hurricane Matthew. So it went from being a night race to a day race for actually the second year in a row, the Charlotte Fall race. So it was already different. But the events that took place in this chase race, I didn't see it going to the levels that it ended up being on the racetrack. And I'll talk more about that later. But as far as the racing goes, I thought that the racing, it was some of the, I think it was actually the best racing we had in a while. Definitely, I think shows the. I think when you look at this daytime race versus say the Coca-Cola 600, I felt like there was definitely a difference in the racing quality. The package was not different from this race to the Coca-Cola 600, but I felt like that the daytime conditions allowed for closer, better racing. It made me wish even more that the Charlotte Fall race went back to being a scheduled daytime race on Sunday afternoon. However, that's not probably going to happen, or at least anytime soon. But to me, I feel like this race was once again proof that day races are definitely a little better than night races. There wasn't just good battles for the lead; there were also like good battles for like 5th place and 10th place. So I like the race more than I thought. And like I said, there were some unexpected events that definitely threw me for a loop. Without a question, the biggest story entering this weekend was news about NASCAR looking into the current chase format and possibly looking at making tweaks maybe starting next year to reward the regular season champion, or in other words, the driver who scores the most points after the first 26 races. And this news, in my opinion, it wasn't surprising. I mean, earlier this year, there was talk among drivers in the drivers' council, or just simply throughout the garage, that the drivers and teams wanted to reward the regular season. So this wasn't really even something that came to NASCAR's mind first. It was actually something that at the drivers thought about first, and it seems like that NASCAR is listening to them. I have mixed feelings on a regular season champion. The way some of the possible ideas to reward the regular season champion is like a first round bye, or maybe an automatic advancement into the final four. But personally, I just had mixed feelings on this. I do think that, because, I mean, where can I start? I feel like that if you truly want to reward the regular season, then you just need to ditch the chase altogether and go back to the pre-chase format, because that truly rewarded the regular season. Why? Because the regular season was the entire season. Every race mattered. And so to me, that's what I say with that. Plus, rewarding, if you were to reward the regular season, it would encourage points racing, and that's something that I feel like the sanctioning body has been trying to get away for years, especially ever since they started the chase, because they wanted to make wins mean more. So why go back to so why create rules that would make you go back to something that you didn't like? This arguably, okay, I'm not really using the right words here. I just kind of feel like that this is once again a case of NASCAR wanting to have things both ways, but it can't. And also, it doesn't. This news and changes are made. It's certainly not going to help NASCAR erase the criticism that it gets for constantly changing rules. And one thing to point out is that ever since NASCAR created the chase format, about every 3 years it gets changed. It got changed. It was created in 2004. It got changed in 2007. It got changed again in 2000. It got changed again in 2011. It got changed to the current format in 2014, and now we're looking at possibly more changes in 2017 next year. But in other news, Todd Parrott, a veteran crew chief, he's been around for a long time, is now the permanent crew chief for the 95 team. Beforehand, he only did he was only on top of the 95 pit box for one title race. And I think that this is actually he'll be the full-time crew chief starting next year. So maybe next year, Ty Dillon, maybe he'll run a full season with the team. It's possibly hinting that. And then I already mentioned Rain, Hurricane Matthew, but once again he gets in the way. Back-to-back races and also back-to-back doubleheaders because the Xfinity race also got postponed. Last week at Dover, the Xfinity race was run before the Cup race. This time it was run after. And one thing to point out was that when it was run before the Cup race at Dover, the Cup drivers that competed in that race had to decide to drop out. This time they did it, obviously because the Xfinity race today was after the Cup race. And really, double headers. I mean, to me, like I don't want double headers to become something that we see often in the future. But to me, I think it could be an interesting idea down the road that NASCAR might want to look at. I think that it might benefit the two lower series truck series and Xfinity series to have more double headers. Right now, the only double header they have is Atlanta. Early in the season. I think the biggest story that came out of this race, hands down, was the amount of chasers running into problems today. I think we had more chasers have some kind of problem or situation that put them in some kind of hole in this one race than we had in the entire first round, which is 3 races combined. I mean, to me, if you think about it, even before the race started, one of the chasers, Matt Kenseth, had to go to the rear to unapproved adjustments. And so he was already in a hole even before the green flag waved. We had Joey Logano hit the wall not once but twice. The second time he hit the wall close to the midway point, he went behind the wall for about 80 laps. Kevin Harvick, one of the favorites, finishes 38th after what was believed to be a power problem, but I believe, and I read this tweet off of Bob Hockrus, that it actually had something to do with the oil pump. He was not able to get back out there, and like I said, finished 38th. And actually, Kevin Harvick and Joey Logano finished 1-2 in this race 1 year ago, and Joey Logano swept this entire round last year. So, what a difference a year can make. And then in the second half, of the race, we had a crash on a restart, or basically Jimmy Johnson was leading the race. Austin Dillon took 2 tires. Both drivers didn't get the best restart possible, but they had a whole bunch of fast drivers behind them. Martin Truex Jr. got into the back of Austin Dillon. He spun around, and then that just created a huge restart crash, which not only took out Austin Dillon, but also took out Chase Elliott. And Chase Elliott had a very good car today. He led 103 laps, more laps than he ever had in a single race in his entire sprint car career before this. Both Austin Dillon and Chase Elliott would DNF, finish 32nd and 33rd. Then with I think like about 30 laps to go, I'm flipping through my notes here to see what lap it happened on. Lap 309. Denny Hamlin running second place and actually slowly gaining on the leader Jimmy Johnson, blows an engine failure, and this was Hamlin's first engine failure. And he said it himself in his interview, since the Talladega Fall race of 2013, so nearly 3 years. And he finished 30th. And this marked the first time since the Kansas race in September of 2007, I believe, that we had 5 chasers finish 30th or worse. And not to mention that other chasers had problems too. For example, like Carl Edwards and Kurt Busch, they got slight damage in that big restart pileup, but they were able to recover. The chase driver that had one adventurous day was Kyle Busch. in the first half of the race, he actually made another schedule pit stop to do a fast tire. He was able to get the wave around, and then actually was the driver that accidentally turned Chase Elliott into the wall on the restart crash. So Kyle Busch got even more damage, and yet Kyle Busch was still able to recover and finish sixth with a damaged race car. It wasn't like a heavily damaged race car, but it was significantly damaged. So Kyle Busch definitely had quite the day, and really was the driver that was able to recover from adversity the best in this race. One Chase driver that didn't have any major problems whatsoever and also happened to win the race was Jimmie Johnson. And this comes at a great time. He snaps a career-long winless streak of 24 races, and if you think about it, he's been a full-time driver for this is his 15th full-time season, I believe. So when you've had that many full-time seasons in your career-longest winless streak of 24 races, I think that shows how talented and great of a driver you are. This is his 78th win, third win this season, first since Auto Club back in March. And this win comes at a great time. Before this year, in the two prior years of the current Chase format, Jimmie Johnson had never made it past the second round. Now he has done that. This win automatically advances him into the third round. And if you look at the third round, there are some good tracks for him. Martinsville, he's won there 8 times. Texas, 6 times, including the last 4 fall races. And so really, I think that now we're gonna have to start talking about Jimmie Johnson as a threat to maybe not just make the Final Four, but maybe also compete for a championship. I mean, I know he's not won a Homestead, and it was proven the last 2 years that you had to win Homestead in order to win the championship. But now, it seems like that. Well, Jimmie Johnson winning his 7th title after looking like the past 2 seasons, it looked like that it might not happen. It's looking pretty realistic now, and certainly, and it wasn't like they had their best performance in like ages. The 48 team, ever since the chase started, they have become a much better team. And in this race, they were also able to not have any mistakes. I felt like that mistakes, specifically on pit road, is what took them out of contention for not only a win but also a great finish of Chicago and Dover in the last round. And actually, not just Jimmie Johnson, but also Hendrick Motorsports as a whole has definitely turned it around since the chase has started after having a pretty miserable summer. So 6th time is not ready to give up yet. Look out for Jimmie Johnson in the next round, and don't be surprised if he is a factor for the win again next week at Kansas, where he's also won there multiple times. To follow up, many of the chasers having problems and Jimmie Johnson already advancing into the next round, let's look at the chase standings. So Jimmie Johnson got that win in this race, and so he will be able to rest easy the next 2 weeks. And next week is Kansas. The week after that, Talladega. You definitely do not want to go into Talladega in a bad / must-win situation. Right now, I don't think anyone is in a must-win situation, but Kansas, which has proven in recent years to have eventful chase implication moments, we definitely could have a couple drivers in must-win situation after next week. And really, if you look at the standings, you can kind of like categorize the remaining drivers into kind of 2 different groups: the drivers that are pretty comfortable, and then the drivers that should be really concerned. I think from Matt Kenseth to Martin Truex Jr., all those drivers have a pretty good margin. But Denny Hamlin, the last driver, it's the top 8: Austin Dillon, Chase Elliott, Dylan Gallagher, Kevin Harvick. They all should be really concerned, and they're going to have to have to do really well at Kansas or win at Kansas. Drivers like Logano and Harvick should be happy that other drivers had problems because because they would have been definitely in a must-win situation, like over 20 points below the cutoff. So they should be thankful that others had problems. As I approach the end of this race review, I want to give some shout outs to some drivers, because one thing that I'm not a fan of the chase season is how really for non-chasers or for drivers that or for drivers that have been eliminated in earlier rounds of the chase, they really don't get mentioned a whole lot, and I think that's a shame, because I think some do deserve a little love. The first driver that comes to my mind is like Kasey Kahne. I believe that is actually Kasey Kahne's best career finish, or it is his best career finish since he won at Atlanta 2 years ago, and that also happened to be his last win. And so great finish for Kasey Kahne. He definitely. So if you look at it, this, now marks 5 top 10 finishes in the last 6 races. So that team has actually been really impressive, even though he's been under the radar, largely probably because he's a non-chaser. Ryan Newman finishes 4th. I think that's his best finish since he finished 3rd at Kentucky. But actually, I felt like that at this race was actually his best performance he's had this season, because he had a top 5, because he had a top 5 car throughout most of the race. When I look at other drivers, Tony Stewart finished 9th, first top 10 since Watkinson's finishing, I think, like top 5 at Watkins Glen. McMurray, really actually both Ganassi cars, Larson and McMurray, bounced back from a miserable weekend at Dover last week, where both of them got eliminated from the chase. Danica Patrick almost got her first top 10 of the year, and I think that's actually her best career finish, but I may be wrong. I feel like other drivers, Michael McDowell, top 15, and for a non-play check, that's pretty impressive. Chris Buescher, 16th place finish, not bad for him. Landon Castle, 19th. So both front row motorsports cars got pretty good finishes for them. To sum up Charlotte, not the race I expected. Wild, the attrition field at some points, and when it was all over, Jimmie Johnson came out on top for the first time in several months. Something that would have been, I think, impossible to think of several years ago. And now we look ahead to Kansas, another Mile High racetrack. So I feel like that the drivers that have excelled at the Mile High tracks this season are going to do great there. Certainly look out for Jimmie Johnson again. I also have to think that we're going to see drivers like Martin Truex Jr. Perform well, and definitely drivers that are now in dire need of a good finish, like Kevin Harvick, and maybe even Joe Logano, performed really well at Kansas. Kansas, even though it has one of the newer surfaces, the racing group is completely wide out. You can race body, you can run high. The fall race, specifically, has had some of the wildest chase moments. Remember, the Kansas race last fall. That's when the Logano and Kansas feud started. And so really, it wouldn't surprise me if we have something like that happen again starting next week. But hopefully we will have a good race. The race in May was not particularly very memorable. I know Kyle Busch won it, and that was his first one at Kansas, so he has a chance to sweep at that track, and it wouldn't surprise me if Kyle Busch runs well. So overall, it'll be interesting, to say the least. And that's pretty much all I have to say. So thank you all for watching. Be sure to rate, comment, subscribe, and bye.